Greetings. I am Dr. Noni Davis, coming to you from Sya Academy. And today I would like to share another presentation that I have created for this podcast. Um, I am the legacy owner of Sya Academy, which is an African centered private school my that was founded by my parents, William Edward Davis, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis. And so I just want to acknowledge them before I proceed. I am the current director, and a lot of the things that I'm sharing with you, I have also shared with my students here. And so let us begin. I want to speak on speaker here. Um, Oops, oh, that was the mistake. Okay. Okay, so let's begin. Um, as you can see, the title of my presentation here is Diaspora from Africa to the Caribbean, the United States and Africa. Innovation, creativity, and invention are African. And the reason I say that is because if you've heard any of these other podcasts, I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that our ancestors or people of African descent, our ancestors were the first people on this planet. They had to figure out how to eat what they could eat. They had to figure out how to create shelter, where to create shelter, and how to develop spaces of housing. They were the ones that had to create organized communities and figure out how to govern each other. Um, they were the first to have to figure out what, like I said, what they could eat, what plants, what part of the plants, or could they consume, which part of the plants were good for medicine, and they were the first to domesticate animals. They had to figure out which animals they could. How do you hunt for these animals? What kind of weapons do you create for your defense? The first to study the stars and understand weather patterns and just everything, And so while a lot of times people want to say these are just cavemen, they were with animals, no, that we have to uh, uh, fight against these anti-black and self-hating narratives or black narratives that try to present us as uncivilized people, where we were the ones who created civilization. And so here I have our innovation, creativity, and invention are African because it's true. And so let's proceed with the first slide. And so the person that I have here, oops, my slide won't move. Okay, wait, let's see what's going on here. Let's see. Okay, so the first slide that I would like to share is Moses West. So what I have done is collected several personalities from uh, America, from the Caribbean, and from Africa, and to showcase some of the amazing talent that we have, and some of the contemporary things that people have done, and some of the things we have a few of our people here, our ancestors. So, but I want to start with Moses West. West is very significant because Mr. West created a water machine that during the Flint, Michigan water crisis, he was able to um, um, develop, bring his machine, which he created when he was in the military, and use it to extract hydrogen and oxygen, the water vapor from the air and turn it into potable water, drinking water that we can use. Flint was going through their water crisis. The government there was not very conciliatory. They were, did not address the issue the way that the constituents would have appreciated. And there was a lot of hint of racist interaction with the people during this time, and so they were suffering and from this lack of water, having to get bottled water and all of this. So Moses West is an African American inventor, created this machine that extracts water from the water vapor that is in the atmosphere. And his invention has provided water to Flint, Michigan, generating over 3,000 gallons of water per day. He currently serves in 4 different countries and has produced 6 million gallons of water for charity. Water is free. That's his whole idea. Water is free. And the machine is designed to extract the moisture from the air and convert it to potable water. Potable water is water that you can drink. Um, uh, the water that comes out of your faucet is supposed to be potable water. Um, Potable water is not rainwater, rain barrel water, particularly in areas that are urban because of the pollutants that are in the atmosphere. So the potable water here in my community, I live in an urban suburban area, would not be drinkable because we have a lot of car pollution and we have just factories, did all kinds of stuff here that would make it impossible to drink the rainwater from our rain barrels. So I would have to add a water, what is it, purifying kind of system. But the water that Mr. West collects, he has created a filtration system within his machine that uh, that makes the water potable. And his invention has helped people in Puerto Rico and the Bahamas and other areas who have had severe hurricane destruction that has destroyed their clean water facilities. And he's been promoted on the news, but you know, this man, I made sure my students knew about him because I wanted them to say, hey, this guy is amazing. Now, another person, Dr. Juan Gilbert, he's also an American. I think he's from Ohio. And the research I found about him was interesting because he created an open source voting system. So most of us are aware that, with the last election that we had in 2020, all of a sudden we heard all these issues with these voting machines, and the voting machines are, corrupt and da 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 da, and people are cheating and all that nonsense. Well, it's all foolishness. We all know that. But this gentleman, Dr. Juan Gilbert, is one of the people who had created a voting system, an open source voting system. And his is mostly for folks who are in the military, who are stationed overseas and who but want to participate in voting. And it is also for people who have disabilities or who are disabled or not capable or who need to have be able to access voting. What makes it so interesting is that the voting machines can be voice activated through audio tactile interface. So Prime 3 can also support remote ballot voting too. So if somebody wants to, like you said, if they're like I said earlier, if they're in overseas, these systems are operated so that the voter can make contact with, log in, can contact a poll worker who can process the ballot, which is then reviewed by the voter via computer screen prior to submission. And so it's also voice activated for people who are disabled and may not be able to manage the keys. I just thought this was really cool because we can really go out here and vote for our freedom. And so is I thought it was a significant time to introduce this man and just see what Dr. Gilbert has produced. And this is a picture of Dr. Gilbert actually showing how and demonstrating how to use his voting system. And so the next person, everybody's, I mean, well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of folks have heard that it was an African American woman and her husband who created a vote, not voting, why am I saying that? A home security system, and who created the first uh, what demo for a CCTV, CCTVs or whatever security. So apparently in 1966, Mrs. Brown was very concerned about her safety at night. Her husband was working away, working as an electrician overnight, and she was concerned about her family, and said, "Hey, look, what can I do to feel safer in my home and overnight?" And so she and her husband, who was an electrician, like I said, created a motorized camera, and put it at her front door. And then they developed a radio controlled wireless invention to communicate through multiple monitors and microphones. And so this means that if someone came to the door, they rang the doorbell, she was able to communicate just like we have our ring, or maybe some of us have a blink system where you can talk to the people who are outside. This was invented by this wonderful woman who is now an ancestor, Marie Van Brittan Brown. And so she also developed a radio controlled wireless invention. I think I said that already, but this led to the invention of the CCTVs. And that's an example of the one that she initially invented. And so now, the ones that we have are much smaller, but yep, this is what she invented. And so let's see, let's go on to the next one. So here we have Trinidadian scientist, Dr. Barbara Hall. I thought she was extremely important because I was able to connect her legacy to that of Onesimus, who was of the African who during the early 1700s introduced the idea of inoculation to America, which required last week. What I was saying about him is that, hey, Africans obviously understood bacteria and also understood the concept of immunity, and so which means they understood that you could get sick from diseases, things that microorganisms, but you can also find a way to protect yourself from these microorganisms. Oh my God! So here we have Dr. Barbara Hall, who and oh, by the way, that was smallpox that the Africans had developed back in before, apparently for I don't know how much longer before not Onesimus came, but it was a practice, so we can assume that they've been practicing it for generations and maybe even a century. Just speculation. But anyway, yellow fever and other diseases were prevalent in the 1970s. And so Dr. Hull, who is this wonderful person that from Trinidad, studied bacteriology and immunology, and was able to join the fight against polio and yellow fever outbreaks back in the 1970s. She was instrumental in discovering new strains of the flu virus, and she developed effective immunization programs for polio. She discovered new strains of the yellow fever virus, and she played a role in developing cure for um, HIV/AIDS. And so here is she worked with the World Health Organization, who we know was a lot of us became familiar with that organization during other major medical crisis, and they were very much involved with COVID, and in recommending what each country should do to manage this pandemic. Um, so Dr. Hull also worked with them. She discovered a rotavirus that caused the seasonal incidence of gastrointestinal disease in children who live in the West Indies. And she was just committed to creating medical practices that had a positive impact on children of the West Indies. And so here I have this diagram, this is Trinidad Tobago, and also some of the symptoms of yellow fever. Um, Yellow fever is prevalent in areas along the equator. I had to take the fever vaccine in order to go to Sierra Leone, which is about 7 degrees above the equator. So areas along with rainforests and that along that equator are more susceptible to these diseases, which are carried by mosquitoes. Um, the next person I wanted to talk about was Emmanuel Cyprian Amoroso, who is also a Trinidadian born African, but he's also an Afro Briton. That's where he died. So this man was born in 1901. But what is fascinating about Mr. Dr. Amoroso was, if you see here, he was 22 when he entered University College of Dublin in Ireland, and he won numerous awards between the ages of 21 and 28. And if you can see, these this was in chemistry and physics and anatomy and physiology and botany and zoology, pathology, pharmacology, medica, therapeutics, medicine, obstetrics, and surgery. The breadth of his understanding of these various areas of science was amazing. And this man was obviously a genius. And I have never heard of him, but here's Dr. Amoroso. He was just a brilliant person, unbelievably brilliant, and became widely known for his breakthrough studies of the placenta and embryology. So this would have to do with pregnancy, of course. And here is the screen that I created just to show this is what he was working with: the development of embryos and the placenta, and probably some of the problems that um, women were having with their placentas tearing, maybe disease or poor development, which would inhibit the development of the embryo during pregnancy. And so this was just amazing that this man was able to do this. So that's Dr. Amoroso. So the final person I wanted to discuss is this young man, um, Ange, Frederick Balmer. Why is Ange Frederick Balmer so important from Cote d'Ivoire? L. Li-Fi. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Li-Fi, because I hadn't. Li-Fi is LED is a light communication technology that can provide rural populations with electrical supply, internet connectivity, and educational content. It is currently used in Liberia, Morocco, Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Madagascar, thanks to Ange Frederick Balmer. So I don't know that I don't recall seeing anything that stating that he had invented this, but he is collaborating with the people. He's in a collaboration, so he's like the owner of a company, this company. So Li-Fi is an LED light put in the house of a person, and they have a machine connected that activates the LED light. An LED light is able to create an internet connection. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so it is economical, ecological, safer, and faster than Wi-Fi. Li-Fi or Li-Fi or whatever it is, I think it's Li-Fi, is also more secure than Wi-Fi because light cannot pass through walls and therefore is inaccessible to hackers. So I was like, okay, that makes sense because, light, windows are transparent. Curtains are translucent, and walls obstruct. What is it? I can't remember the word, but uh, light cannot penetrate walls, of course. And so, because of that, if you're in your home and you have your LED light, hackers cannot access um, your Wi-Fi or your internet. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I'm trying to think of that word. Okay, I'll think about it later on. But what it is, I can't. My brain just went out. But Wi-Fi is also more secure. Oh no, it's also a healthier and cleaner source of energy. It reduces electromagnetic wave radiation. So electromagnetism, I guess some of that is like your radiation from the microwave, but also the radiation that we're getting off of our computers, all of that. That's reduced by um, this Wi-Fi. Wow. And so here is some of the other benefits of it. Can enhance high-speed internet. Is complementary to Bluetooth, infrared, or Wi-Fi. Can transform the internet. Can be extended to people located in remote areas. And Wi-Fi sensors capture information like rates of rainfall and sunlight, which can aid communities, governments, and farmers with developing response plans for drought, flooding, and best times to grow crops. Okay, so we talked about this in uh, last week when we talked about the satellites. Several African countries, I think there are now 12 that have satellites, and they are using their satellites for similar reasons, for drought, for flooding, and understanding at the agriculture there. And so here, this one can actually inform um, farmers about when to grow their food, when to begin, to prepare the soil for, seeding and all of that. Uh, this is amazing to me. And here's a diagram of how it works. So as you can see, you have the overhead head lamp fitted with an LED with signal processing technology. And so, it comes from the server, the internet, or whatever, power, streaming content, and it goes right into the LED lamp with a photo detector and all of that kind of stuff. And then, as you can see, it is able to be transferred directly to the computer. Oh, wow. So last week I talked about the the television, the radio wave television that an African man had created. He had also created a helicopter that could use five different fuels, and he had an EV car that he had created. Then we had the Ethiopians who created EV, have a whole industry of EV cars, and have become a clean energy country because they've got hydroelectric power from the dam, and then from the Nile, a dam they have built on the Nile River. We also learned that they're greening, that Africans on both sides of Sahara have found a way using indigenous knowledge to uh, green restore the Sahara back to a green um, space, which is amazing. And each group has found their own different technology. One with acacia trees and planting them with mushrooms. Another with these, boomerang looking holes in the ground that collect and hold water, and they're just transforming the desert. And then the 14-year-old boy who created the uh, uh, skin cancer reducing soap. Um, we have, and then I introduced Onesimus, an African who, like I said at the beginning of this, with Dr. Hall, who the innovation of immunity and awareness of microorganisms and how to fight disease. So This is why I have at this conclusion here. These are just a few examples of how the African diaspora in the Caribbean, in Europe, the United States, and Africa have and are continuing to make innovation contributions to the world, just as our ancestors did from the very beginning of time. Innovation, creativity, invention are African. We must, make sure that we're conveying these ideas to our children so they won't think that they're anomalies if they love science. No, you're just doing what your ancestors did. If you want to do STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and and math, you're just doing what we do. And we should not feel like this is something that we can't do. We can do it because we have done it since our ancestors have been on this planet, and it was our innovation that helped us to create the strongest economy in the world. um, with cotton and rice and indigo and sugar and what else did we do? Indigo, sugar, cotton, rice, cocoa, chocolate, and coffee. But we were the innovation. We had to come. We came to this country and with no knowledge of the soil, with no knowledge of this of where we were, and and in spite of the violence and in spite of the rape and the murder and the stealing of us and destruction of our culture, we still managed to make America one of the most profitable countries in the world. And Europe, we're the reason Europe is what it is today, of our labor, and whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And so and then for us to rise out of slavery, and at this point in time, if you think about it, in 2008 we had the first African American male president, and here in 2024, what 20, less than 20 years later, we have a black woman who is Vice President Kamala Harris, who is about to run for president and will be the first woman and the first person of woman of African descent about to win again. Ooh, my goodness, this is not what Thomas Jefferson imagined. This is not what George Washington imagined. And that's okay because no matter what they think, it's knowing who we are and why we are here and how we are here to rule because we rule the bank. I'm in Shay. Thank you so much for listening, and you will be blessed. Ash.